Today I'll be pronouncing a character's name wrong, alongside covering how strong the 7th fighter of humanity is, the power and abilities of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, and slayer of chief god Hades. This will include a breakdown of who he would and wouldn't win against from the story Record of Ragnarok so far. With that, make sure you watch the whole video, as he may be a lot stronger than you think, and of course subscribe for more. Firstly, his Valkyrie Volute is this armor, with this Valkyrie's specialty being defense, while being able to maximize the potential of Huang's martial art, also having the ability to recast if needed, like turning into a sword at the end of the fight for Huang. This may mean by default, he has divine weapon durability, just keep that in mind. His fighting style is based on his own martial art, which he called Qi Yu, with 5 main abilities and the skill to combine them if needed. The armor form allows him to block attacks by absorbing its power and regenerating it back at his opponent. The limit of this ability seems to be power capable of breaking divine weapons. His crossbow form involves using a puff of air to strike the crux of his opponent's power. This is normally when they attack. This works because Huang can see the flow of ki throughout people's bodies. This came about due to his mirror touch synesthesia he was born with, and developed throughout battles to surpass human limits. When the air hits them, they have their power weakened and their defense drops, such as previous one-shot attacks from Hades. Hermes makes a statement that it's an unavoidable attack, mainly due to its invisible nature, with Zeus pointing out that Hades is faster than Huang, but the attack still works. This is because one does not notice when the air bubble hits, making the task of avoiding them in combat impossible. His spear form seems to just be a strike capable of piercing Hades. The halberd form is a powerful kick capable of doing this to the arm of Hades he used to block it. And the sword form is his most powerful attack with a sword that was weaker than amped Hades, but when he hits it, it does lethal damage. Also being able to use the sword as a base for his heavenly hand of defense technique. Some other things to discuss is as follows. When Gol was questioning whether there is any human who can beat Hades, Brunhilde said this: "There is one, the only one who can compete against the ruler of Helbram," and chose Huang. Low diffed Ares dodges regular thrust attacks from Hades without sight, can block and deflect a named attack from Hades with his armor form, defeated the demon god Qi Yu after 6 full days of fighting without a volute, has insane drive to continue fighting with only one arm, slams Hades to the ground with his heavenly hand of defense, impressed Sasaki, Izami, and Okita to get excited to fight him. When discussing where he ranks currently in the verse, it does really depend where you also rank Hades and how strong you think he is. I think he's a character that is fairly underrated, and I'll discuss that in his dedicated video, but now I'll discuss all the what if battles. So as always, the tier list is laid out like this, starting at the bottom, who I think he would win against quite easily, or at least very high chance. Jack, I don't think that's controversial whatsoever. Jack kind of gets wrecked by his air bubbles. He may be able to do some trickery, like fighting Jack in London is dangerous, but in any other situation, Huang most likely stomps. Zero also goes in this tier for me. He does have some impressive attacking based moves, but nothing really defensive or really any counters for Huang's abilities, who I believe has a much better kit as a whole. And Zero is most likely not as smart as Hades, so working out ways to counter specific things won't really happen in my opinion. And the last fighter in this tier is Raiden. Again, due to air bubbles kinda do Raiden potentially the worst due to him more of being a blocking character rather than dodging, which doesn't really matter as he wouldn't be able to avoid him. A lot of characters wouldn't be able to at first. So yeah, air bubble and this beats him up. He may be able to tank quite a few shots because he is quite tanky, but as a whole he gets kinda rolled. The next tier is who he is more likely to win. Not saying it's like fully confirmed, like these fighters in this tier list have the possibility, but I think it's more likely that Huang's going to win. So we have Hercules. Similar to Raiden, he is quite tanky and does have potential one-shot abilities on Huang, but that's if he can deal with the air bubbles, and I personally don't think he is. It may be a longer fight, but I think as a whole, Huang's kit will allow him to defeat Hercules. Up next is Hajun. So Hajun has the power to destroy divine weapons, as we saw in his Buddha fight, was able to pierce his shield. So he'll be able to counter the Heavenly Hand of Defense, but that's most likely the limit of that. I do believe it could be a similar fight to Huang vs Hades. That's if you consider Hajun stronger or around the same level as Hades. Personally, I don't, looking at a narrative perspective on that. So yeah, Hajun down here. Next is Lubu. So his Sky Eater most likely can get through his Heavenly Hand of Defense, but does he have an answer for the air bubbles? Not really. He is quite adaptable, so maybe the fight could be similar to Huang vs Hades, but would he be able to work out in time, and does he have the personality to really fight like that? Potentially not, so yes, he could one-shot Huang with a Sky Eater potentially, but I personally don't think it's going to go that way. And the last fighter in this tier is Shiva. Doesn't really have any answers for the air bubbles once again, but Huang may not have any answers for the unpredictable movement of Shiva, and if he does transform into his fire, Huang may be affected by that due to his eyes and seeing him burning away, so that could be another factor that could result in Huang's win in this situation, but I personally think it's more likely for Huang to use the air bubble and then defeat him that way. Up next is the either way tier. So I have Poseidon in this tier for the following reasons. We pretty much get it confirmed that Poseidon is faster than Hades due to some comments Sasaki made. By what degree, we can't really say. It's more so implied that Hades raw power wise is stronger, but while on that note, it may not really matter as Poseidon also has the power to break divine weapons, meaning Huang's Heavenly Hand of Defense won't be as effective. But something to also consider, Hades was faster than Huang and was still struggling with the air bubbles and the fighting style of Huang, so maybe Poseidon could have a similar issue. If we had a better way to gauge how much faster Poseidon was, maybe I could put him in the more likely to win against Huang, but for now I'm just going to leave him in either way. I can't really say, depends on your perspective and who knows what could happen with this. And the other fighter in this tier list is Thor. So far I do think he's still the strongest raw power wise. Heavily Hand of Defense won't work whatsoever, and I wouldn't be surprised if an air bubble would take out all his power. So potential one-shot ability, we don't know his full capabilities as he didn't really go fully all out against Lubu. So yeah, kinda a wild card, could potentially one-shot, could potentially struggle with the air bubbles, so Thor is in either way. Next are the characters who I believe are more likely to defeat Huang rather than losing against him, mainly because they have answers for the air bubbles. Up first is Sasaki. He may be able to predict the air bubbles. Of course, this is talking about end of Poseidon fight Sasaki. Start of fight, Sasaki most likely or definitely loses in my opinion, but end of fight Sasaki is kinda monstrous. His scanning is broken, his predictions are broken, so yeah, I think Sasaki is more likely to win. And the other fighter in this tier is Buddha, mainly due to future vision. He'll know the air bubbles coming, he'll know where it's coming from, he'll be able to counter that, and he has lethal attacks as well, so Buddha kinda wrecks him with future vision. And in the final tier characters I believe just outright defeat him. Adam, he will be able to copy all his moves and be better at it, so he'll just eventually beat him up. And Zeus, Huang has no answer for the fist that surpasses time, so he would also beat him up. And yeah, that's really my tier list for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Check out the other stuff in the description as always. Shout out to the Mad Lads who support the channel via the Patreon, and yep, that's it guys. Peace.